as we were saying, the drum parts within the songs, you have a very prominent voice within the band. At what stage? I know you said that John comes along with demos. What stage do you have your input? I mean, do you ever approach the band with an idea yourself, or with a groove?
I have done, but we've never really written a song around a groove. But certainly there's been moments where I've come up with something totally unrelated. And actually the drums, these demos, the demo will come in, but sometimes they go through just all these sort of incarnations, and often it'll be like, well, let's just scrap all of that, and and it will come to the drums, and I'll be like, okay, and the drums sometimes just set the tone, and it'll just spark something off. But yeah, I mean, John's really open to me changing them entirely, basically immediately if I want to, as long as he thinks it's better and we all think it's better, and serving the song better. Qwerty Finger, the second song on the live, that used to have the little kind of there's like a little kind of lick in it.
Yeah.
That used to be on every single beat. like, and I was like, John, you can't. That's just gonna like be a mess.
Yeah.
Even if it was played like as tightly, as tightest in the world, just having all those acoustic sounds flying everywhere, it's just gonna be messy, and it's gonna just totally swamp things. So stuff like that, like he's totally open to me saying that it needs to be kind of simplified a little bit.
That's good. I mean, do you play to a click live?
Mostly, yeah. We've got some backing track stuff. I don't really like saying the word backing track because it's not really. It's only bits and bobs that we haven't got enough hands for. There's nothing significant on them, but I actually really like having a click now, and I sort of prefer it in a way. It means that we don't argue about tempos. And then I was speaking to the Vaccines the other day, Pete, their drummer, and actually no, it's the bass player, it was Arnie, their bass player, saying that they never have clicks, and I can see why. It's totally different kind of music, but they like the variation of don't know what tempo it's going to be. Oh, we're feeling excited, we're going to play it faster, and then if it's good, and if it's not, and I can see that there's a kind of joy in that. But for a band like us, where we have got backing track stuff, we've got quite a lot of electronic stuff, and we're quite neurotic about how the music comes across live. I think we couldn't really get away with it, although there are 4 songs from the first album that we play without click, almost just to kind of remind ourselves what it's like, and me to play without a click.
You've spoken a little bit about your jazz background. You can definitely hear that, although you're somewhat tied down to playing in a regimented way to a click and with these electronic rhythms and programming and things. You can definitely still hear the freedom and the syncopation in your grooves.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think it's hard for me to say really, but I think that there's a certain freeing up that happens when you study jazz, and like I said, unfortunately I don't really play jazz anymore, but it's an open-mindedness, I think, and also just being more comfortable with quite tricky rhythms. I used to play in big bands at college and stuff, and some of that was like some of the modern big band tunes that have been written in the last few years. Some of it's dead hard, and you're trying to. It's a real kind of mental workout because you're trying to read the part, and it's odd times that are changing, and I don't know if I could even do that anymore. Like it's a real skill, and but it does mean that when you're playing stuff that's not quite of a a challenge rhythmically, that it just feels a bit more comfortable. So yeah, I mean, I definitely took a lot from studying jazz. So.
I think, you tell me, but I think the sense of dynamics that you play with as well is probably something to do with that. And you can hear your technique, when you're playing, you can hear how good your hands are, how in shape you are. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I was always a bit of a technical geek, I suppose. I had a really good drum teacher, Jeff Hutchinson. He was very into technique, so I kind of did that. I mean, I should do more on it. Obviously, there's loads of stuff about my playing I'd like to improve. I'm sure everyone's the same, but I was really into kind of the subtleties of like Gary Chaffee, those books and all that stuff, and looked at molar technique. But anyway, I don't want to get too far into it. But yeah, it's something that was on my mind. But actually, then when I got into playing a lot of jazz, I found that my technique was I kind of preferred the sound of it not being too precise. So it's not that I'd make it worse, but I'd kind of be a bit looser with it, and I'd be a bit like, you kind of have to kind of take on physicality of it a bit.
So almost as if that technique practice that you had done had made your playing too rigid for that style.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a bit. I think it was a bit kind of hingy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Whereas I got more into playing in a kind of circular thing and thinking more. I mean, it's kind of a philosophical thing, but just thinking more in circles and kind of flowing stuff and stuff. Obviously, in this band, maybe that doesn't come across, but although there are moments like Tu Fa Nero, there's kind of quite a free little bit at the end of that. But yeah, I enjoy. I mean, like one of my favourite drummers is Brian Blade. Just the way it all just seems to connect, and it's just like lovely long ideas, and it's kind of melodic in a way, and those are the sort of drummers that I've found myself more interested in these days. I wish I could play like that.
Well, I mean, I was also going to talk about this linear phrasing that you often choose for your songs. I mean, that's partly probably from the replicating programmed stuff. But you play them at sort of moderate tempos and quite low tempos sometimes. Is it hard to keep that timing consistent and for it to flow?
I find the whole gig hard. I mean, because it's just there's a song called Nasra's on Your Side. That's to a click now, but there's even stuff like doom doom like. It's not hard, but you just have to concentrate because there's a lot of space between, and you're right, the slower it gets, the harder it is because the space, it just needs to be filled, right, and you don't want to be leaning, timing-wise, you don't want to be kind of rushing it and pushing and pulling it too much.
I suppose that's where all the movement that you were talking about comes
absolutely, taking the time to go like that as opposed to kind of just that, it helps me, definitely. But yeah, the linear stuff I've always liked, and I've always liked, I don't know, people kind of say that give books a bad name, but I think they're great because I wish I did more of them these days because they just push you out of your comfort zone and they kind of can just spark a little idea. I think, people say, oh, you can't learn that from books, and it's like, well, you can. I just think it's all good, basically. You should be listening to music, you should be playing from books, and you should be listening to people that are better than you, teachers, etc., etc. And it's all good. The difficulty is, especially, I went to music college. I mean, you're kind of bombarded with all these different opinions. The difficulty is finding your own little way through it, and trying not to close yourself off to any ideas, but also you can't do it all. It just becomes overwhelming. So you've got to just be like, well, I'm really, this is what excites me, so I'm going to do that. And I do actually think there's such a thing as being too well-rounded in a way. I think, unfortunately, not just with drummers, but musicians and all sorts of things, you can kind of be like, I want to be able to do it all, and that's great, but A, it's impossible, and B, it's the kind of gaps in people's knowledge, or the imperfections, or the whatever, can make them interesting. And also, if you're really good at something, I sort of think, well, just get really good at, like, not just that thing, but concentrate on it, because there's probably not that many people that are as good as you know what I mean. You can actually, rather than having kind of an even spread, I think it's people I've noticed will hire someone because of like one thing. And I think it's good to concentrate on it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's true. You can spread yourself too thin, and if you have a unique voice or a distinct voice in one area in particular, it's definitely a struggle.
I mean, it's hard. Of course, it's kind of sometimes harder to make money that way. But like jazz drummers, I can't remember his name, Ari Honig. It sounds like Ari Honig. You know what I mean? It's like that's his voice. I mean, and he's made a career out of it, and that's hard. That is rare. I wouldn't say that everyone would be able to do that because it's. There's not that many gigs to be able to be that unique, but But I do admire it, you know. I admire people who can manage it, who are just like, no, this is me, and you can just instantly hear it's them, you know.
You've been hired for sessions outside of everything as well, haven't you?
It's evolved, but with Battle Ashes, yeah. It was only 2 days in the end. Same producer as us, so that's how that came about.
Right.
But totally different way of working. She was a bit more, a bit like putting a painting together, if you know what I mean. It wasn't. We're quite neurotic, and like all the parts are quite defined and they fit in and blah 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 blah. She was just like, just try a beat and then that'll change something else, and it's quite kind of. Just getting ideas down, and then she'll go back and she works in the studio a lot more than we do. You know, and it'll come together in the studio. So for me, that was like quite eye-opening, because we have the approach of make it work in the rehearsal room, and then we just need to record it, as opposed to using the studio more as a tool. I mean, we do that, but she really does do that, which was really interesting for me, quite kind of refreshing in a way.
And was it good for you to step outside of everything for a short while and just?
Yeah, I think yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is. It's kind of refreshing and invigorating in a way, because really, I mean, I don't want to sound kind of jaded, but you are playing the same songs every night, and they might, you know, they're different. It's different every night because it's different crowds, different venues, different things go wrong, which, you know, I kind of enjoy in a way. So that, you know, it doesn't get boring, but equally you can kind of get too much inside your own playing, if you know what I mean, and it's kind of good to be kind of forced. I went to a few jazz jam nights a few months ago, and it was a bit like, ooh. But it's just good for your brain, because parts, you know, you feel like your brain's having to work a different part of it that you maybe haven't been using.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely things about my playing that has improved by being in this band, like the concentration of not screwing anything up, and playing with a click, and playing the same fills in the same place every night for the most part. That is a challenge. But equally, there's other parts of my playing that I don't sort of need for it, so that they're obviously going to be getting rusty.
So it's very different from the sort of exhilaration you feel from improvising, or, you know, playing
absolutely.
on the fly.
Improvisation. Yeah, I mean that's so hard to do, and I got a little bit down that road, you know, after 3 years at Jazz College, but even still, I feel like a total amateur, really.
Is this Berkeley you're talking about? You went to
I
Berkeley
went there for a
while,
year,
didn't you?
yeah.
Was that on an exchange?
Not officially, but I didn't think I'd be there for 4 years, which is what the course was. I thought I'd just go there and then see what happens, and it was great, and I got a lot out of it. But then I just thought after a year, it was kind of a pragmatic thing, because I thought, well, I'm getting to know people, and you do, I wouldn't say networking, but you do feel like you're kind of making a bit of progress. And then I thought, well, if I do that, then I'm going to have to stay in Boston or New York or whatever. Am I prepared to do that? And also there's, you know, it's expensive, all that, you know, just living there and being there and whatnot. So I thought, no, I think I'll go to Leeds, which was great in a totally different way, because it was smaller, and it was kind of, it's hard to say because I don't know what would have happened at Berkeley in terms of opportunities and whatnot, but immediately at Leeds there were big bands and things that were great opportunities for me. And music college, I think in general, is what you make of it. And, you know, the same with art college, and you know, I hear a lot of my friends that went to music college and art college said, they didn't really, you know, they didn't really give me what I wanted. And I was like, well, it's kind of there for the taking. You have to really, you know, I still think that about music college, and so I try and get what I could from different people who could offer different things, and I felt like I made the most of it, and I was working hard, and it was really, you know, good.
Well, you're making it sound great, and
thank you.
I mean, it sounds as if you and the band are doing exactly what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
Which I imagine is quite a difficult thing in the music industry these days.
Absolutely.
So hats off to you, and keep doing what you're doing.
Cheers,
Thank you very much for your time, Mike.
Cheers,
nice to meet you. It's iDrum Magazine with Michael Spearman at London's Forum. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.